Hey everyone, Steven here from Redolessence. Welcome back to another video. Hope you guys are doing great. And in today's episode, we're going to be taking a closer look at the brand new release by the company Dusita. And this fragrance is called Montri. If you are a fan of natural fragrances, if you are a fan of bold, enigmatic, poetic, passionate fragrances, I think I have a really special one for you here today. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on it, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin today's review on Montri by Dusita, and I tell you all about this fragrance, the notes, the longevity, what I get in terms of the smell, the progression and evolution on my skin, I do want to start things off by mentioning that if you're a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit that bell icon so you can be notified every time I do upload a future video to the channel. And of course, give this video a thumbs up if you take something of value or if you learn something from today's episode. It would really mean a lot to me. So here's a fragrance by the brand Dusita, and the perfumer, her name is Pisara, and this fragrance is called Montri, which is named after her father, who has since passed on. And this was kind of an ode or an homage to the things that he loved, his poetic nature, and a lot of the fragrances that he enjoyed wearing as well. Now, in terms of the note breakdown, this is a really complex fragrance. You have Oud Palau in the base, which is kind of the star of the show, but you have two types of rose, including May rose. You have Jasmine Sambac, you have Ylang Ylang. There's this creamy orris butter that's used in here, but it's also very spicy and aromatic as well. In the opening, you have saffron and coriander and oregano. There's a little bit of like a leathery accord in it as well. Once you give it a chance to dry down, a little bit of the sweetness coming from tonka bean complements this dried fruit accord, which the perfumer made herself, which is really interesting. But then there's also cedar wood and sandalwood, if I'm remembering correctly, oak wood being another ingredient, and all of those kind of join the oud ingredient to give it this well-rounded woodsy base. So I'm very excited to give you my thoughts on the smell and talk about the performance and all that stuff that you came here to hear. But let's go ahead and start things off with the presentation. So right in the opening of this fragrance, you are going to get that bold, extroverted, but also very poetic and passionate vibe that this fragrance puts across. And so you are going to get that agarwood ingredient, and this is the oud fragrance for lovers of oud. I think there are two types of oud consumers on the market, if you will. The types that want oud to be in the name of their fragrance because it sounds classy and luxe and whatever, but they don't want to smell it because they have this association with it smelling like a barnyard or being on the dark, animalic, and challenging side of things. And then you have the consumers that really want this oud powerhouse, something that's going to smell very exclusive and exceptional and exotic. And the latter is what you're going to find in this fragrance. The oud in here is very animated, and you're definitely going to notice it. And it's funny because as soon as I sprayed it on, I thought to myself, and I didn't look at the note breakdown initially, I sprayed it and I said, whoa, jasmine, right? And the jasmine really came through. And the thing that really turned on that light bulb in my mind was me being able to detect the presence of indole. Now, indole is a naturally occurring compound that is found in jasmine, and it also has a little bit of like this animalic touch to it. And then when I looked at the note breakdown, I started to question myself. I'm like, wait a second, is that animalic component coming from the agarwood or is it coming from the jasmine? It could be a little bit of both, to be honest with you. There is sambac jasmine, so you're gonna get a natural combination of floral ingredients in here, the rose, the jasmine, but then that creamy orris butter is probably going to be the strongest floral ingredient, or maybe it's just as strong as the jasmine as far as my nose can detect. So in the opening, you're going to get this burst of spice, and there's a certain smoothness, and I think the only spice contributing to the smoothness is the coriander. The saffron, on the other hand, kind of like adds its own unique flair to the composition, and I definitely pick up on the spice, but I think the spice is not going to be as noticeable as the agarwood, and I do think that the oud is going to be the strongest woodsy ingredient that you're going to get in this entire fragrance. Sandalwood for me is very sweet and creamy. I think the sweetness is coming predominantly from that dried fruit fruit accord. I think even the tonka bean is going to be secondary to that dried fruit accord. Cedarwood for me always has this peppery vibe, and I'm not getting a whole lot of that. In terms of that spicy distinction, I am getting mostly saffron, and so I think there are a lot of really unique elements found in this fragrance, and I think the perfumer worked very hard to strike a really harmonious balance among all of these ingredients so that there is this steady progression and steady evolution. It's not like you spray it on and it smells animalic the whole way through. That's not what you're gonna get. And it doesn't smell spicy the whole way through. And it also will take a little bit of time before those creamy, sweet undertones start to reveal themselves. And so it's a very deliberately and meticulously composed fragrance, and I am 100% confident that, you know, she did her father justice, and I'm sure he's very proud of her. This is a beautifully done fragrance, and so, you know, just smelling it from top to bottom, I think it's very elegantly composed. So for me, if I were to break it down in a layman sort of a way, I would say in the opening, it smells a little sweet but animalic, and the sweetness is coming from that dried fruit accord. Can't really discern if it's, you know, date or fig or coconut or, you know, I'm not sure what fruity ingredient is in there. And I think the tonka bean is kind of blurring things a little bit, right? With that sort of vanilla coumarinic vibe that it has a tendency of putting across. And then I also think that in terms of the floral components, which are secondary to the fruits and the spices, and the oregano in here is not very strong, by the way. And the reason I say that is because when I think of oregano, I think of Interlude for Men by Amouage. You don't get any of that in here. So I think it's maybe just adding a little bit of personality, but, you know, it's very introverted. In terms of the florals, orris and jasmine, that's what I'm getting predominantly. Ylang ylang has a certain aroma that is very distinctive for me, at least, and I can quickly pick up on it. I'm not getting a lot of that. And then in the base, you're gonna get oud, followed by oud, and then followed by a little bit more oud. You are probably gonna get a little bit of sandalwood, but again, you know, could be the tonka bean that's kind of giving that creamy, sweet impression, so I'm not entirely sure. But the notes you can expect to smell predominantly from this fragrance are dried fruits, orris, oud. That's the best way of explaining it in layman's terms. I think it's a wonderful fragrance. I think it's a beautifully done fragrance. For some people, it might be a little bit too heavy for the summertime unless you live in a cooler climate or you see yourself wearing this predominantly indoors, but great for formal occasions. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. Now, first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, this is definitely a unique fragrance. I've tried a lot of jasmine perfumes, a lot of oud perfumes, a lot of saffron perfumes, and even fragrances with a dried fruit accord. When I think of dried fruits, I think of Frappon's 1270. Don't get anything similar to that. Oregano, like I said, Interlude for Men by Amouage. Don't get anything similar to that. In terms of the oud in here, I could name 5 dozen oud fragrances off the top of my head. Doesn't smell similar to any of them. Really impressed with the quality of this one. And in terms of the longevity, you're gonna get 9 to 10 hours. The projection is amazing for the first 2 hours of application, will radiate beyond an arm's length. In terms of the versatility, perfectly unisex. Somebody who's a little bit older and a little bit more mature will probably have a stronger appreciation for this fragrance. And the reason why I say that is because it is more on the indie and artisanal and niche side of things as opposed to like a mass marketed designer fragrance. So you have to have an appreciation for these floral ingredients, for the oud, for the spices, for the sort of caravansary of ingredients that you're gonna get in here. And I think this one is really good for formal occasions, and I can see this working really well in every season except for summer, unless you're wearing it indoors in a climate controlled environment. In that case, do whatever you want. In terms of the presentation, I have seen the different sizes that the brand has, and I think they all look very classy with the gold hardware and the logo engraved in the cap. My final verdict on this fragrance is it's a wonderful fragrance. I think it's a beautiful dedication to her father. I think it's very masterfully composed, and I personally love the interplay of a lot of the natural ingredients found in here. It really smells expensive, and it is, right? So you're paying for the quality, you're paying for the craftsmanship, and I'm very proud of the perfumer and owner of the brand for composing this fragrance. I think she did an exceptional job. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell so you could be notified whenever I do upload future videos to the channel, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video or if you learned something today. Thanks for watching. Love you all. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.